My dear friend, if your heart has ever felt like a battlefield, a place where peace seems like a distant memory and whispers of doubt drown out the gentle voice of faith, then you are not alone. Perhaps you carry a quiet fear, a hidden shame, that to admit to anxiety is to confess a lack of belief, a failure in your spiritual walk. You might feel the weight of expectation, the pressure to present a facade of unwavering strength, even when your inner world feels like it's crumbling. The truth is, many of us have stood in that very place, feeling the invisible grip of anxiety tighten, making it hard to breathe, hard to pray, hard to simply be. Charles Spurgeon, a man whose words have echoed through centuries, a pillar of faith for so many, confessed, "My heart became a battlefield." This wasn't a confession of weakness, but a testament to the very human struggle that so many of us navigate. It's in these moments of intense inner turmoil, when the ground beneath us feels unstable, that we might question our connection to the divine. We might wonder if our struggles push God away, if our anxieties are a barrier to His presence. But what if I told you that your anxiety, as challenging as it is, does not negate your spirituality? What if, instead, it is a profound part of the human experience, a landscape where faith can not only survive but also be deeply strengthened? Spurgeon himself understood this deeply. He knew that, fear does not take tomorrow's pain away, but it steals today's strength. This is the insidious nature of anxiety, it robs us of our present, leaving us depleted and fearful of what lies ahead. It's a thief of peace, a whisperer of inadequacy. But as we begin this journey together, I want to offer you a different perspective, a truth that has the power to transform the way you see yourself and your relationship with the divine. Your capacity for anxiety does not define your faith, rather, it is within the crucible of that anxiety that your faith can be forged anew, refined, and made more resilient. You are not broken because you feel anxious, you are human, and in that humanity, you are seen, you are loved, and you are held. This is the quiet confession many of us carry, isn't it? The fear that admitting to anxiety is akin to admitting a failure of faith. We envision our spiritual journey as a path of constant, unshakable calm, and when anxiety descends, it feels like a personal failing, a sign that we aren't praying hard enough, believing strongly enough, or perhaps, that we've somehow displeased God. This internal narrative can be incredibly isolating, making us feel like we're standing alone in a storm, convinced that everyone else has found shelter. But what if we began to reframe this experience? What if, instead of seeing anxiety as a sign of spiritual deficiency, we saw it as an invitation, a sacred space where God's presence is not absent, but perhaps, even more intimately felt? Charles Spurgeon, a man who preached with such power and conviction, a man who navigated immense personal suffering and public scrutiny, confessed that his heart was a battlefield. This profound admission isn't a detraction from his faith, it's a testament to his deeply human experience. It reminds us that even those we hold up as paragons of spiritual strength wrestled with inner turmoil. God does not distance Himself from us when we are struggling, rather, it is in those moments of internal chaos, when we feel most vulnerable and overwhelmed, that He draws near. The Psalms are replete with expressions of anguish and distress, yet they are also filled with declarations of God's unwavering presence and faithfulness. Think of Psalm 34 verse 18, which assures us that, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." This is not a promise for the perfect, the unblemished, or the anxiety-free, it is a promise for all of us, especially for those whose hearts are weary and whose spirits are burdened. Spurgeon himself wrote sermons amidst his own periods of mental disquiet and pain, demonstrating that the act of ministering, of pouring oneself out for others, could continue even when the inner landscape was tumultuous. Anxiety, then, is not necessarily a sign of sin or a lack of faith, it is a profound indicator of our humanity, a signal that we are indeed living, feeling beings navigating a complex world. And within this very human experience, God sees an opportunity. He uses the very feelings that threaten to overwhelm us as pathways to a deeper, more profound dependence on Him. It is in our moments of perceived weakness, when our own strength fails, that we are most open to receiving His strength, His peace, and His unfailing love. This understanding is not about excusing anxiety, but about embracing the truth that God's grace is sufficient, even, and perhaps especially, in the midst of our deepest struggles. There are days, I know, when the words of prayer feel heavy, when the act of speaking to the divine seems impossible. The silence in your room might echo the silence you feel within, and the words you wish to offer feel trapped, unable to escape the confines of your own distress. Perhaps you've tried to pray, to articulate the turmoil, but all that emerges is a sigh, a whisper, a profound sense of inadequacy. This is a place many have visited, a desolate landscape where the usual forms of communication with God feel out of reach. Charles Spurgeon understood this deeply, confessing that on some days, all he could manage was a sigh. This simple yet powerful admission validates the experience of countless individuals who find themselves unable to muster eloquent prayers during times of intense anxiety or emotional fatigue. It reassures us that prayer is not always about grand pronouncements or perfectly formed sentences. Sometimes, prayer is simply the raw, unvarnished expression of our inner state. It can be a quiet groan, a tear shed in solitude, or even a prolonged, heartfelt sigh that carries the weight of all the words we cannot speak. Our tears, too, are a language that God understands. He sees the unspoken pain, the quiet desperation, and the yearning for relief that often accompanies anxiety. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, speaks of this divine understanding, assuring us that, the Spirit intercedes for us with wordless groans, Romans 8 verse 26. This means that even when we feel incapable of praying, even when our minds are too clouded by anxiety to form coherent thoughts, the Holy Spirit is actively interceding on our behalf, translating our deepest needs into a language that God comprehends. This is a profound source of comfort. It shifts the focus from our perceived inability to pray to God's boundless capacity to hear and respond. We often carry the burden of believing that our prayers are what sustain our relationship with God, that the efficacy of our faith rests upon the quality of our supplications. But the truth is far more liberating. It is not our prayer that sustains God's hold on us, it is God who sustains us, regardless of our prayerful capacity. He is the anchor in our storm, the steady presence even when we feel adrift. So, on those days when prayer feels like an insurmountable task, remember Spurgeon's sigh, remember the silent language of tears, and rest in the assurance that you are heard, you are understood, and you are held by a love that transcends the need for perfect words. When the weight of anxiety presses down, it's natural to seek reassurance, to listen for a divine word that can cut through the noise of fear. We often imagine that God requires a version of us that is strong, composed, and unfailingly optimistic, and we fear that our anxious hearts make us unworthy of His attention or His work in our lives. But the profound truth is that God does not need a polished, perfect version of you to love you or to use you. He sees you, in your entirety, with all your vulnerabilities and struggles, and He loves you fiercely, exactly as you are. It is in this unvarnished truth that we find the deepest invitation to surrender. The Apostle Peter, in his first letter, offers this powerful directive: cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you, 1 Peter 5 verse 7. This is not a passive suggestion, it is an active invitation to release the burden, to consciously entrust the overwhelming feelings, the racing thoughts, the gnawing fears, to the One who can bear them. Surrender, in this context, isn't about giving up, it's about relinquishing control, acknowledging that we cannot manage everything on our own, and placing our trust in a higher power. Charles Spurgeon understood that the presence of God does not always immediately erase anxiety. Instead, he noted, God's presence does not eliminate the anxiety of the moment, but it gives meaning to the suffering. This is a crucial distinction. God's presence doesn't always grant us an instant reprieve from our feelings, but it imbues our experience with purpose and hope. It means that even within the discomfort, within the struggle, there is a divine narrative unfolding, a deeper lesson being learned, a strengthening of our capacity to rely on Him. Your anxiety does not disqualify you. You are not too broken to be loved, and you are certainly not too weak to be used by the divine. In fact, it is often in our perceived weakness that God's strength is most powerfully displayed. When we are at our limits, when our own resources are depleted, we become open vessels, ready to be filled with His power, His peace, and His purpose. So, breathe deeply, and consider this truth: you are seen, you are loved, and you are capable of carrying out the divine work intended for you, not in spite of your anxiety, but perhaps, in a way that is deeply intertwined with it, drawing you closer to the very source of strength you seek. The journey through anxiety, as we've touched upon, is not a solitary confinement. It is, in fact, a profound invitation to engage with the very fabric of our being, to explore the intricate interplay between our mental and spiritual landscapes. Now, consider how this applies when you face moments where the future feels shrouded in fog, and the present is a churning sea of what-ifs. This is where the practice of anchoring becomes not just beneficial, but essential. Anchoring, in this contemplative context, refers to the deliberate act of grounding yourself in the tangible reality of the present moment, thereby creating a stable point amidst the storm of anxious thoughts. It's about recognizing that while your mind may race ahead, your breath, your body, and the immediate environment are always here, offering a sanctuary of immediate presence. Think of it like a ship in a tempest. It may be tossed by waves, but a strong anchor holds it firm, preventing it from being swept away entirely. This practice isn't about denying the existence of anxiety, but about cultivating a capacity to observe it without being consumed by it. It's about developing a mindful awareness of the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your breath, the sounds around you. These are all real, concrete anchors. Furthermore, cultivating intentionality in your daily actions provides another powerful layer of grounding. When anxiety whispers doubts about your purpose or competence, setting a clear, manageable intention for a task, no matter how small, can redirect your focus and reassert a sense of agency. For instance, instead of being overwhelmed by a large project, you might set an intention simply to gather the necessary resources or outline the first section. This deliberate focus on a singular, achievable goal acts as a powerful antidote to the scattered energy of anxiety. Consequently, these practices help to decentralize the power of anxious thoughts. They are not ignored, but they are no longer the sole occupants of your mental space. You learn to create distance, to observe them as passing clouds rather than permanent fixtures in your sky. This shift in perspective is transformative, empowering you to engage with your life from a place of greater centeredness and resilience, even when the internal winds of anxiety are blowing. Moreover, the cultivation of gratitude, even for the smallest blessings, serves as a potent recalibration of your internal compass. When anxiety magnifies perceived threats and deficiencies, consciously acknowledging what you do have, what is working, and what moments bring even a flicker of light, redirects your neural pathways towards a more balanced and appreciative state. This isn't about forced positivity, but about a gentle, honest recognition of the good that coexists with the difficult. It's a deliberate act of turning your attention towards the sustenance that is always available, even when obscured by fear. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've navigated the intricate landscape of internal struggle, recognizing that the very places where we feel most vulnerable are often where the deepest wells of strength reside. We've explored the profound truth that our human experience, with all its complexities, does not diminish our spiritual essence, but rather, offers fertile ground for its cultivation. The whispers of doubt and the shadows of anxiety, when met not with resistance but with gentle understanding, can illuminate pathways to a more profound reliance on a grace that is always present, always sufficient. It's as if we've been gathering fragments of light, each one revealing a facet of a larger, more comforting truth about our inherent worthiness and the unwavering nature of divine care, even when our own capacity feels depleted. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider how these insights converge, forming a richer tapestry of understanding. The moments of perceived inadequacy in prayer, the internal battles that Spurgeon so candidly described, and the very human experience of feeling overwhelmed, these are not signs of departure from the divine, but rather, are the very points of connection. They are the subtle invitations to lean into a strength that is not our own, to trust in a flow that is greater than our current understanding. This convergence suggests that the path forward is not about eradicating struggle, but about transforming our relationship with it, learning to hold our anxieties with compassion while simultaneously reaching for the enduring support that is always available. It is about recognizing that the resilience we seek is often found not in the absence of challenge, but in the courageous act of facing it with an open heart, trusting in the unseen currents that guide us. Conceptualizing this movement, imagine a river flowing through a canyon. The river is our spiritual life, and the canyon walls represent the challenges, the anxieties, the moments of difficulty we encounter. Instead of trying to carve new paths around the canyon, we learn to navigate its contours, to understand its depths, and to allow the river's inherent power to carry us forward. The very structure that might seem to impede progress becomes the conduit for our journey. This understanding is not about passive resignation, but about an active engagement with the present reality, recognizing that within the very confines of our struggles lies the potential for growth and a deeper appreciation of the journey itself. It is in this mindful navigation that we discover a profound sense of peace, not as an absence of external challenges, but as an internal state of being that remains steady amidst life's inevitable turbulence. This cultivated inner stillness becomes our true compass, guiding us with clarity and unwavering trust. The journey we've shared, friend, has been one of quiet courage, of acknowledging the very human heart that beats within each of us, a heart that can feel like a battlefield, yet is also the sacred ground where faith is not extinguished, but profoundly deepened. We've seen that anxiety is not a verdict on one's spiritual standing, but rather a testament to our shared humanity, a space where dependence on a love greater than ourselves can blossom. God's presence is not reserved for the unburdened soul, it is most intimately felt by those who dare to bring their fragmented selves into His light, trusting that even their sighs and silent tears are heard and understood. This is the enduring truth: you are not too broken to be loved, nor too weak to be used. Your perceived limitations are, in fact, the very doorways through which divine strength can flow, transforming what feels like weakness into an unexpected reservoir of resilience. The essence of our exploration lies not in finding a magical cure for anxiety, but in recalibrating our perspective, in understanding that the presence of God offers meaning to our suffering, not necessarily its immediate eradication. It's about learning to anchor ourselves in the present moment, in the steady rhythm of our breath, in the tangible reality of the here and now, even as our minds may try to pull us into the currents of future fears. This practice of mindful presence, of intentional living, and of cultivating gratitude is not a way to escape anxiety, but to engage with it from a place of centeredness, recognizing that the divine is not a distant observer, but an intimate companion within the very texture of our experience. Your capacity for faith is not measured by the absence of struggle, but by the willingness to trust, to surrender, and to continue walking, even when the path feels uncertain. The true practice, then, begins not in a grand declaration, but in the quiet, consistent turning of your heart towards the one who sees you, loves you, and sustains you, precisely as you are. It is in the gentle act of offering your anxieties, not as confessions of failure, but as invitations for His grace to meet you. May you walk forward with the quiet confidence that your journey, with all its intricate layers, is held within a love that is boundless, a strength that is inexhaustible, and a peace that surpasses all understanding. You are seen, you are cherished, and you are more than enough.